Man, with this whole setup, it looks like an intervention. Like, we need to talk, but it's not. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today, you already know, I have a question. Is it worth the hype? And this question can be applied to many areas of our lives, of what we're doing, of different topics, and of people even. You can ask this about people, like, is this person worth the hype? And I've been thinking about this in context of basically like every week there's some kind of trend, there's some kind of current thing that's in the air, everybody's talking about. It might be a song, it might be an event, an award show, a celebrity, it might be political, it might be economical, it might be a show that just came out, it might be a show that's about to come out, it might be, the idea that Taylor Swift's album is coming out next week, and I have to say I'm very excited for it. But, there are things that generate hype. They generate excitement and energy, and many times you have to ask yourself, is this worth everything that's going on right now? Is this worth the hype? And sometimes yes, sometimes no, sometimes it's subjective. I guess all the time it's subjective. Like all the time it matters because, a 75-year-old retired pipe fitter might not find Taylor Swift that important, might not understand the hype at all. And to them, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter, but to a 16-year-old girl or a 20-something gay guy, it's very much worth the hype. But I don't know. I think sometimes the hype around something can spoil it. I remember years ago, there was a song called I've Got a Feeling, and I think it was by the Black Eyed Peas. And that song was like the song of the summer in like 2006 or 8 or whenever it came out. And I remember when it first played, I was like, man, this is a great song. I really enjoy this. Holy smokes. And then it got played in every single movie that year. It got played on the radio every single day. It was in TV shows. It was just way too overexposed. And suddenly it wasn't worth the hype. And to this day, when I listen to that song, I just think back of like all the times it was overplayed that one summer. And I don't like that song anymore. I remember distinctly liking it the first time it was played, but it lost its magic because the hype around it became suffocating. And that's kind of sad because it's a good song. Like lyrically and everything, it makes a lot of sense. But for me, it's just not a vibe anymore, which is, a bit sad. However, there are other things that we fall in love with because they don't have a lot of hype around them. They don't have like this like energy. Nobody's talking about them. They're kind of indie. This is where you get the whole hipster mentality where it's like, oh, I liked that before it was cool, and we make fun of hipsters for that because hipsters like to think that they are they've got their finger on the pulse of what's hip and what's gonna explode and what's gonna get popular. And we find that kind of like a pathetic mentality to have. It's a silly mentality to have, but in our culture, we just find hipsters kind of ridiculous and annoying, and it makes sense basically. But there is something to be said for the idea of like, is this really worth the hype? Like really? So it depends on whether you buy into the thing or not. Like if you don't buy into the hype around the Hunger Games and all of that, you aren't probably looking forward to the new movie next month. And that's fine. There are some people who are absolutely obsessed with it. I've seen TikTok accounts completely dedicated to this new movie, like A Ballad of Snake and Songbird. And every single time I find something on TikTok where it's like this entire community is obsessed with this very niche, very specific thing, I always think like, man, like the world is so vast, and what we get to see in the mainstream is really mainstream. Nowadays everybody can have their own specific community or their own specific interests, and they can be very niche, you know, like there is an entire community of people that just enjoy watching Farringdon, like horse hooving, like a farrower. So like when a horse's hoof gets like a rock in it or an infection or something, a farrier has to like come, and the horse's hoof is like put into a hold, and then, you know, you have to cut out the parts of the hoof. There's an entire community online that is absolutely obsessed with watching videos of these essentially like surgeries. And like it's a huge thing, like hundreds of thousands of views. People are obsessed, and it blows my mind that there is an entire community of people very fascinated and obsessed with this very niche thing. But when something gets to a mainstream thing, millions and millions of people are watching it and obsessed with it and consuming that content. So, you know, like your Noah Becks and your Dixie D'Amilos and your Taylor Swifts and Selena Gomez's and your Brad Pitts and Angelina Jolie's, like these like mainstream household names are sort of all consuming when it comes to TikTok, music, film, whatever it is. And sometimes the hype around something, like the excitement around something, the popularity around something can ruin it, especially if you're one of these people that really enjoys being the indie guy, the guy that finds all the cool music first, the guy who, you know, oh, I found that like 4 weeks ago. Yeah, I've been listening to this artist since they were, you know, singing in strip malls. You know, sometimes there is this whole idea of like people are really obsessed with, you know, being on that cutting edge, being right there. And that hype can really detract from that. And like, it's a pretty shallow thing. Like I'm not talking very deep. I'm just saying like the hype generated by something can also be a detraction from something. And I think that's, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just talking about it, you know, like as like an anthropologist, I'm just examining the cultural significance of when a specific thing becomes incredibly popular. That thing kind of changes. Something in the makeup of that thing changes and alters. I think it's a good reason why we usually love original movies, original TV shows, and it's also why spin-off shows are never as good. Sequels are never as good. Like I do think, okay, take Star Wars. Star Wars is a good example. So if you don't know, Star Wars, I think it was like 1977 or something, the first Star Wars movie came out. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But when the first 3 Star Wars movies came out, they generated an entire fan base that became obsessed with that kind of content, that specific movie or those movies. When the sequels came out, I was at the perfect age that I saw the sequels before, or the prequels, the 1, 2, and 3, the ones that they came out after the original 3, but in the storyline, the original 3 are right here, and the second set of the movies took place in the plot before. So the plot line, it was like a prequel. And you might totally know this, but I'm just explaining it for people who have no idea what Star Wars is. And I was at the perfect age. I was like a little kid when the prequels came out. And so for me, those movies are amazing. I love those movies. I think they're really amazing. Like I got obsessed with the TV shows and like just, I liked them. And so the generation that liked the original 3 were really frustrated and they hate the new 3. And then we got to see this again because not too long ago, 3 more movies came out that take place after the original 3. So you have the prequels, the originals, and the newest ones in terms of plot line. And so the plot line is the newest ones are the newest ones now. And now my generation hates on the newest 3 because we think that the plotline is stupid. There's dumb characters. We hate everything about them. And so it's like the same cycle kind of repeating itself. And so now everybody except the newest generation really hates the new 3 movies. And I think that's so interesting because it's kind of like, it's the idea of like, well, these aren't worth the hype. You know, I have built Star Wars up into my brain into a specific thing. And the newest 3 movies do not meet that requirement or that level. And so I'm like, well, those aren't my Star Wars movies. Those are dumb, you know? And it's basically because the hype of Star Wars has kind of consumed me. And so anything that doesn't hit my standards is suddenly beneath them. And that's kind of exactly what I mean, is like, is it worth the hype? Is falling in love with something that intensely really worth the hype? Is it worth doing? Because it can lead to like a lot of issues. And this kind of goes back to, I just thought of this. It kind of goes back to the idea in Taoism of attachment. So, you know, like you've probably seen depictions of like Buddhist monks or sages or, you know, these very wise people. And a lot of times you hear that they have detached themselves from earthly possessions and they've detached themselves from the world. And in Western culture, we generally view detachment as like a really cold and mean thing. You know, like if he's detached, it's like, oh, he's like a sociopath. Like he's not good. Like he doesn't have anything holding him to this earth. And that's like a really bad depiction of what detachment is, because in the Buddhist tradition and the Taoist tradition, detachment is the idea that nothing in this world stays the same. We all change, we all grow old, we all die at some point. And emotionally attaching yourself to objects, places, or people, that's not a good thing, because none of those things remain the same. Places change, you know, different things in the environment never stay the same. Objects break, they deteriorate, they alter, you know, there's all kinds of different states of something. If you have a doll, the doll's going to get old and raggedy and fall apart one day. And people change, we grow, we alter our states. And so the idea is, if you attach yourself to any of these things, you're going to be really upset when they change. Ergo, the Star Wars movies, they have changed their meaning, they've changed their plot. And so the people that got attached to them at specific points in your life, now these new movies don't meet your expectations, and so we're all angry about it, right? And like, I'm in the same boat where I wouldn't watch the 3 movies, the newest 3. I wouldn't watch them if you paid me to watch them. Like, I'm just not interested. But it's because I've attached myself to what the concept of Star Wars was when I was a little kid. And so attachment is not generally a good thing. And so you might be saying, but Jax, like, what about attachment when it comes to people? This is a messy subject. I think a lot of Buddhist monks, I've spent time with Vietnamese Buddhist monks, and I've asked them questions about attachment when it comes to like falling in love with somebody. And the best answer I got was he's a young monk. Like, he wasn't like a fully graduated monk. And he like very much said, like, don't take my word for it, but this is how I see it. And he told me that attaching yourself to other people is like a dependency. And so like, you're dependent on them, just like you're dependent on smoking if you're a smoker, or that kind of thing. And that isn't a healthy relationship. And so if you are detached from the world and you remove your emotional attachments from people, you're able to just love them in the moment. So you're not thinking about their past, you're not thinking about their future, you're in the moment with them, and you're able to be truly loving and caring about this person. And that doesn't mean that you don't have some compassion for them and you hope that they do well in the future and things like that. But it removes your reliance on somebody for like your own emotional well-being. You know, if you are able to detach yourself from those situations, you are able to love much healthier than if you're attaching yourself to them and you're putting on all of these, you're putting hype on them. You know, you're like, if you become obsessed with somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this person so much, suddenly you've got some hype. This person has got some hype. And when they don't meet your expectations, you're really angry. You're really upset. You feel betrayed. How could this person do this? I thought they were perfect. No, they were never perfect. You put them on this pedestal in your head. You put this hype on them, and they're never going to be able to meet that. It's not their responsibility to meet that hype. So by being detached from that kind of situation, you are truly able to love somebody unconditionally in the moment, and then you move on. And you know, if both people have a good interaction, there will be more interactions in the future. You know, like if you and somebody are able to love each other in the moment, not have attachment, just have a really good time, enjoy yourself, communicate that you've had a good time, that will continue to happen. You will continue to want to see that person again. And I think that really comes down to like that sums up like the perfect relationship, at least in my head, where two people are incredibly independent and they have this detached style, and they can truly love each other from afar, up close. They have good interactions together. There really isn't this like constant need, like I don't need the other person. They don't need me. You know, that is the kind of connection that you really want. And it's okay to need somebody now and then. And it's okay, like if I get sick or something, my family's there. I know that they're there. But they're there because I try to love them in the moment, and it's not based on any kind of like responsibility or something, or at least I like to think it is. I like to think that they take care of me when I need it because I'm there for them when, you know, they need it. And so like attachment and dependency are a little bit different. You can be independent and detached, but still receive help and still, you know, require it every now and then, because we all do. We're humans, we're social animals. It's how it works. So I don't know, guys. Is it worth the hype? You can tell me. And thank you guys for listening. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. Let me know. Feel free to like put topics in the description of things that get overhyped or are underrated, you know, things that people don't talk enough about or things that people talk way too much about. Because I think those are always interesting sort of differences. You can really see why something is so popular and why something is just not talked about enough. But anyway, as always, guys, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.